Congress has introduced a new bill attempting to break up one of the largest tech companies in the world, which is Google. It is the Competition and Transparency in Digital Advertising Act, which has support on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, which would prevent companies that process more than $20 billion in annual digital ad transaction. Last quarter, Google did $54 billion. Not last year, last quarter, $54 billion in digital ad spend. Look, the question is simple. Is Congress out of their mind for trying to regulate a company that does such amazing things for the entire advertising market? Or does Google need some more competition? Justin, we'll start with you.
Well, I think this is Google has a hand in like a lot of steps of the digital ad process. And they want to make sure, if I read this article right, that they just want it to be like more transparent and ban the companies that process those transactions from participating in more than one. So there might be like favoritism going on, so I think that itself might be fair. It reminds me of the Amazon thing where they're going after Amazon, or they're trying to go after Amazon for favoring their Amazon basics over other players. Right. So like, are you a marketplace or are you a seller? And I think that's a philosophical thing. I don't really have an answer there, but this is exactly the reason why I've been more hesitant than I otherwise would in jumping on Google as the number one position, because it is so much cheaper than all the other big tech. But I think what's loomed behind the scenes that people forgot is this antitrust stuff. And I think if you break up Google, I actually think the Google platform is weaker if you break it up. Like imagine all these other, like I've looked at some other smaller ad tech players. They don't have the moat that they have as a collective that Alphabet does. So this is somewhat worrying, I guess, on a scale of 1 to 10, of 10 being the like sell now. That'd probably be like a 4.
To give a little bit of context before we go to Tom, which Google is one of your top 3 positions, I have a blog right now, and I recently started monetizing that blog with Google Ads. And oh my goodness, they make it so simple. They give you a little piece of code, you copy and paste it into the HTML of your blog, and boom, you have an ad. They take 32%, I get 68% of the cost per click or cost per impression, and I can have as many ads as I want. And if I drive traffic, if I can get 50, 100,000 views per month on my blog, I can make an income. And it's all because this one company has the search-based targeting to make sure those ads are relevant, because they have to be relevant or else people aren't going to click on them. So to me, Google plays a heavy hand, but it helps support independent publishers, kind of like myself, which is why I think this bill wouldn't be the best. Tom, what are your thoughts on breaking up Google?
I think you're spot on. I mean, even the show we're doing right now is on the Google platform, Google-owned platform. And the reason we're able to do it because it's so good at allowing us to reach exactly the audience we want and monetize it. That's how we pay Amit the big salary we pay him. And we're going to double it in the next show, by the way. And I think that the idea here is, I don't agree with Justin about one thing and one thing only, is Justin saying, well, the market isn't pricing in. I think the market is definitely pricing in the antitrust concerns. It's quite evident. Google is a company that's doing $270 billion of revenue per year. I mean, that's insane. And they're trading at an insanely low valuation of 5 price to sales.
Yeah.
That's 1/4
10
of
times
the valuation.
EBITDA.
Yeah. But I mean, price to sales, apples to apples, like a Snowflake is trading at 23 or 22. They're trading at like 1/4 of the valuation of Snowflake, even though, Google is definitely a better business because everybody knows the hammer is coming for Google, and that's getting priced in. Unfortunately, I do want to give a fair disclosure. Google is one of my biggest positions in my portfolio. It's 10% of my portfolio. I still think that despite the FTC aggressiveness, they will be fine. And don't forget, the FTC is, at the end of the day, unfortunately, is a political entity at this point, as much as we don't want to admit it. And if the administration changes, depending on what happens in the midterms.
This is Congress.
I know, but depending on what happens on the midterms and the next elections, the whole approach of the FTC might change. This current FTC, Lina Khan, et cetera, these guys are very correlated to this administration. So if the administration changes in the next couple of years, you might see a little bit of a different narrative. But yes, the risk is definitely, it's priced in. 5 price to sales for Google, that's insane.
I think it's a buying opportunity. But again, you got to
Yeah,
be right.
it's 10% of my portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, like you saw what happened. Like the only thing we can go back on is Microsoft and Internet Explorer, and
Yep.
they ended up being fine. And
Who competes with Google? What are the competitors?
well, yeah, I mean, but
Yahoo,
do you agree,
Bing?
Tom, that if they broke it up, like they had to sell off YouTube, they have to sell off like search and whatever, and
Yeah.
like, and you can't favor YouTube videos in the Google search, it does get weaker.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good move macroeconomically. You're going to be taking a shot at one of your main drivers of GDP. For
And
something
independent publishers around the world that use Google Ads, you know?
Yeah, a lot of freelancers, a lot of independent contractors like we are depending on the platform. I don't know if the people really want the FTC to go after Google. That would be an interesting question.
Right.
It sounds more like a political agenda than something that's coming down from the people upwards. I've never heard anybody say, oh, Google is a monopoly, let's go at Google.
Right. Especially because anyone can get discovered on Google, whereas on Amazon, if they're selling their own basics over your stuff, then you're like, all right, Amazon's actually screwing me at this point.